So the Cold War, nukes everywhere. Everyone's terrified, right? You'd think the scariest thing that America ever pointed a warhead at was Moscow. Nope, it was the moon. Yeah, the actual moon. Not a metaphor, not a joke. A real funded classified US military plan to blow up a nuclear bomb on the surface of the moon. And here's the thing that gets me. It wasn't canceled because somebody in the Pentagon suddenly discovered a conscience. It got killed for a reason so small, so pathetic, that it honestly is funnier than the plan itself. So how do you even get here? How does a country even go from, let's put a satellite in space to, let's nuke the moon? It starts with getting absolutely humiliated. October 1957. The Soviets launched Sputnik, first ever satellite to orbit. Just a beeping metal ball. Really, that's it. But that beeping metal ball sent the entire US government into a full-blown meltdown. Because the message wasn't, we have a satellite. The message was, we have rockets that can reach you, and you didn't see that coming. America's response was basically the government equivalent of getting clowned in front of the whole school and needing to do something, anything to look tough again. And something anything is how you end up with scientists in a room asking, okay, what bigger than a satellite exactly? Because here's the thing, losing the space race wasn't embarrassing. It was a legitimate fear that the Soviets were now ahead in the one area that actually mattered. Missiles that could reach American cities. So the pressure to answer back fast and loud was enormous. So scientists get into a room, and somebody actually says it. Nuke the moon. And the wild part? Nobody laughed them out of the building. This was real. It had a name. Project A-119. Officially, a study of lunar research flights. Which is a very boring name for let's detonate a nuclear weapon on a celestial body live in front of God and everyone. The Air Force commissioned it. Actual physicists worked on it. This wasn't some commander's napkin scratch. It had funding, meetings, paperwork. And the goal was almost embarrassingly simple. If a nuke went off on the moon, you could actually see the flash from Earth. And that's the whole pitch. Forget the subtlety, forget the diplomacy, just detonate something so big that anyone looking up at the night sky gets the message. We can do this, and we did it on the moon. Because here's the thing, if you don't understand how badly America needed a "we're still the strongest" moment after Sputnik, this plan sounds insane. Once you get it, it sounds almost inevitable. Now let's talk about who was actually running numbers on this. And this is the part where I need you to sit down. One of the guys crunching the numbers on the math on how a nuclear blast would look from Earth was a young grad student named Carl Sagan. Yeah, that Carl Sagan. Billions and billions. We're all made of stars and stuff. The gentle voice explaining the cosmos to your childhood self. Carl Sagan, before any of that, he was doing math on nuking the moon for the Air Force. His job specifically was calculating how big and how visible the resulting dust cloud would be once the bomb went off. Because remember, the entire point was visibility. If nobody could see the flash or the cloud from the Earth, the whole plan was pointless. You'd have blown up part of the moon just a whisper. And this is where it gets genuinely difficult logistically. You can't just lob a nuke at the moon like a baseball. You need a rocket that can hit a target 250,000 miles away with enough precision that it actually lands somewhere visible, at the right angle, at the right time relative to the Earth's rotation, so people are actually looking at the right patch of sky when it happens. This is the late 1950s rocketry we're talking about. The same era where rockets were still blowing up on the launch pad half of the time. So you've got a plan that needs near perfect targeting, executed with technology that could barely get off of the ground reliably, achieving maximum dramatic effect for an audience that hadn't even landed a probe on the moon yet, let alone a bomb. Real quick, if you're already sick of AI slop flooding your feed with robotic narration pretending to be history content, that's why this channel exists. Every word you're hearing right now is me, my voice. No text-to-speech, no AI narration doing a bit. If that's your thing, sub right now. Back to the content. So how close did this actually get to happening? Closer than you'd probably guess. This wasn't shelved after one meeting. The study ran for about a year, with the full team attached. Physicists doing blast calculations, others working out trajectory and delivery, others modeling what the flash would actually look like from different points on the Earth. They even worked out that a small yield warhead was actually the better call, not a massive one, because a huge blast on the moon wouldn't have the same dramatic ring of dust effect that the smaller, more contained detonation would. Think about that for a second. They didn't just ask, should we nuke the moon? They go far enough to ask, what's the ideal size of a nuke to nuke the moon for maximum theatrical effect? That's the level of specificity you don't reach in a plan that's casually being kicked around. And this was happening at the same time as real, serious steps towards a lunar mission was happening. Probes, tracking stations, and the beginnings of what would eventually become NASA. Project A119 wasn't some isolated fantasy off in a corner. It existed right along America's genuine, sober plans to explore the moon. One track was, let's study it, map it, understand it. The other track was, let's blow a hole in it so the Soviets can see some fireworks. Both were being taken seriously by the same government at the same time. So after all that, the funding, the physicist, the debate over the perfect size bomb for maximum visual drama. Why didn't it happen? Was it a moral objection? General crisis of conscience? Nope, it got killed by paperwork logic and bad math on fallout. It turns out launching a nuke 250,000 miles away on a 1959 rocket came with a small catch. If the launch failed, it was a real possibility that the nuke didn't just disappear. It comes back down to Earth, possibly on someone's town. So step one of let's flex on the Soviets carried a real risk of let's nuke Ohio by accident. And even if it worked perfectly, there was another problem. Scientists pointed out that blowing up part of the moon might contaminate it. And remember, this was happening right as America was gearing up to actually go there. So the Air Force was sitting there and realizing they might be planning to poison the exact real estate they were about to plant a flag on. Then someone asked the obvious question that should have come up on day one. What does the rest of the world think when America's answer to the Soviets have a satellite is we detonated a nuke on the moon? Turns out, nuclear weapon as public relations strategy tested badly. Genuinely badly. So the Air Force quietly shelved it in 1959. No press conference, no announcement, nothing. It just vanished into the filing cabinet. And it stayed there, completely secret, for over 3 decades, until a biographer going through Carl Sagan's old papers after his death found references to it, and the whole thing came out. Let that sink in. The guy doing the math on the dust cloud for a top secret military nuke plan accidentally left the paper trail that blew the whole thing open. Decades later, from beyond the grave. You couldn't write an ending that petty and perfect if you tried. And honestly, A119 isn't the most embarrassing overreaction that America's ever had. There's one more. No bombs involved this time, just a radio broadcast that convinced actual real Americans that aliens were invading and the world was ending. People panicked. People ran into the streets. And the wildest part is how much of that mass panic everyone talks about might actually not have really happened the way you think. That's the next video. Go watch it.